kind of three ways of looking at how justice functions in a Jewish setting. It's theological, ethical, and legal. So theologically, one of the kind of core concepts, which we share, it's in the Hebrew Bible, Christian and Jews share, that humanity is created in the image of God, and because of that, we are all worthy of human dignity. And so because of that, because of the virtue that each one of us is made in the image of God, we need to, it's on us to ensure that the image of God is honored in all people. That's kind of a primary element. Another is that for Jews in our kind of national story is that our experience is one of suffering, right? We just came out of the holiday of Passover a couple of weeks ago, where one of the core lines in the Passover Seder is every person is obligated to see himself or herself every year as if they went out of Egypt. That the experience of being enslaved is built into who we are. And so one of my teachers said it's a very strange thing for people to say, like, oh, we're so great, we were slaves. Because it's counterintuitive, that kind of points to how deeply we hold on to that story as well. Multiple times in the Torah, we're told, you were slaves in Egypt, therefore don't oppress the stranger, don't oppress an Egyptian, know what it is to be a stranger and to love the stranger. So that comes across as an ethical thing that also plays out for Jews. A lot of us, our sense of our history is that we face persecution, which is, by and large true, not all over the place. But talk to many people today, and somewhere in their family story, whether it be 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 60, 70 years ago, there's an experience of persecution, overcoming it, and that challenges us or reminds us that we need to act on behalf of those who also suffer. So that's the ethical. And then the third piece is the legal, or we call the halachic, which Judaism being a legal tradition that's very much guided by the way in which we parse out what God wants from us through legal codes, turns to actually make that practical. So the Ten Commandments, Exodus chapter 20, a lot of wonderful principles, guidelines for behavior. But if you turn the page to Exodus chapter 21, the next thing that happens is you have many pages of laws. Right? How do you actually then take the abstract, not the abstract, but the principles of justice, how God wants us to behave, and then how do you actually live that out? What happens if your ox gores your neighbor's ox? What happens if someone falls into your hole in your property? How do you deal with that? And so a lot of Jewish law, especially civil law, looks at how do you actually adjudicate these things? How much tzedakah, how much money should you give to the community? Who collects it? How do you division it out? So those are kind of three things, and I think at its core, I think the sense you talk about what is justice, what is social justice, going back to when God was talking about Abraham in Genesis 18, God refers to Abraham and his descendants as one who should follow tzedek u'mishpat, justice and righteousness. And so that is very, I think we've understood that is that we are very concerned about the world that we're in, caring for those who are in it, and that's actually what God wants us to do.